Murder as a sport? God help us. 10% of this book is about Baba Yaga, and 90% is about 2 theater kids. Do with that as you will. Just the pits. The homosexual undertones were not to my liking. Nope. This book was weird and kind of gross. Reading this book, you would think that women are only here to suffer, that they can only suffer, that there is no happiness available or allowed. A sci-fi twist I was not expecting. Violin, cemetery, and ghosts make a yummy, delish read. However, the main character was annoying. Creepy book about missing Native women. The author writes like poetry. Unfortunately, I'm not a fan of poetry. I was definitely not expecting what this book was. It was all very serious and shocking. Not for me, but go into this book expecting to be taken aback. I loved the book. You nailed it. And that was a demonstration of how 1-star book reviewers on Goodreads sometimes pitch books I love way better than me. If this was intended to be satirical, 5 stars. No, I'm sorry, this is too stressful to read. My wife said I could stop, so I did. I don't even know what happened. Moral is, don't have children. So bizarre. Some pretty weird stuff. That's right, 2 in a row. Apparently this is vampire noir. Since I like neither of those things separately, let alone together, my review should be taken with a few grains of salt. With elements of very unbelievable alternative history and actual African gods, this short book was just not my cup of tea. Depraved housewives, 3 of the most disgusting characters I have ever encountered. Brutal, grotesque, raw, real. Objectionable language. I only read a few pages before the swear words were far too many and far too extreme for me. For example, 5 in just 1 sentence. Keep your fucking cats indoors. And this has been another episode of Goodreads 1-star reviewers recommending books I loved way better than me. Inane. Glad I stole it. What's more exciting than a princess refusing to be a human sacrifice to appease her brother? We'll call this one Hot Topic Satanism. Yeah, when you bring in 2 ladies naked in the woods having sex together, and then handing over a book to another woman stumbling across their act, and handing it to her and telling her it's hers, you lost me as a reader. I did not care for this book at all. Too much science fiction or fantasy or whatever it's called. I lost my spot and couldn't find the chapter to save my life. I don't mind feminist books at all, but the man-hating bit at the end felt like it came out of nowhere. Maybe I should just accept that I'm too stupid for adult sci-fi and move on. We just want SF, no gay stories. Stop making everything gay. This book is still haunting me a week later, and I'm pissed about it. Learned something new. I had no idea spite houses existed. And this has been another round of Goodreads 1-star reviewers actually making pretty good pitches for books. Lesbianism and government secret experiments. If I had a nickel for every time the author referred to snipping off nipples with gardening shears, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? The main character did not deserve to have super insane cult powers. If I could describe this book in one word, it would be sesquipedalian. In layman's terms, it's an absolute mindfuck of a book. I was disturbed and was not having fun at all. That was fun. This book is so messy, it makes me nauseous. I must be holding a Southwest Airlines plane ticket because this plane did not take off. What is up with all the feminist range in so many books recently? I am simply not the right person to read this. I have no patience for strangeness. A disappointment. I love time travel stories, but this one focused more on a lesbian relationship. I love that this could also work for Time War. DNF. Got bored and watched American Psycho instead. And this has been another round of convincing you to read books with the unknowing help of Goodreads 1-star reviewers. Felt like I was reading Simlish. Gotta say, the child sex cult really caught me off guard. If you are easily mystified by spiritual mumbo-jumbo, culty hogwash, and child prophets, this book is for you. Ugh. I didn't have the patience to read more than 100 pages. I think the author got a hold of magical mushrooms or some other mind-altering substance. Lots of impressive world building on display here. Too bad that world is peopled with such bratty catty nincompoops. Teenager kids with superpower playing at war. Not impressed. I liked the premise and the beginning of the story, but ultimately there was just too much weird stuff going on for me. What with the Grand Cyclops, the Night Doctors, etc. I tried. DNF. I don't mind an agenda, but I read for the story. The figurative language in this book beat down on me like I owed it money. I actually didn't read this book, but I gifted it to someone who now doesn't even speak to me, and that's why I rated it 1 star, out of spite. We'll probably read it in the future, and I'm pretty sure I'll like it. And this has been another episode of convincing you to read books with the unknowing help of Goodreads 1-star reviewers. And don't worry, all the titles and authors are in the caption if you want to snag them. Wildly far-fetched porn. What normal human being starts quoting Shakespeare verbatim in the middle of a sentence? Thy need to get a grippeth. Childish writing to the tune of, golly gee, we traveled in time and saw bad things. If anyone who read this and understood what happened, please let me know. This bookum is a celebration of pure fucking stupidity. Conventions are a thing because they have been found to be the best. Don't fucking reinvent sci-fi. Ambitious. The concept seems promising enough, but the book goes off the rails pretty quickly. Like a tire on fire rolling downhill, even before the reader is halfway, the author changes her plot and tune, and the editor keeps adding rolling, burning tires. Girl, shut up. A unique story, long overdue in the telling. Sadly, not meant for me at this time. I recommend this book for anyone who wants to be depressed. C.R.A.P. Confused liberal escaped his cage and left this scribble behind. I don't understand either. And that was another example of Goodreads 1-star reviews being quite helpful. Let me know if you're going to give any of these books a try. I hope you do. I support lesbians, but I don't support furries. It was really well written and so engaging. It just made me cry, and I'm not even black. I didn't want to cry. That's my own fault, though, reading a book recommended by my brother. Indulgent, inconsistent, collapsed under the weight of its own lofty ego. Cute book! It seemed like the author wanted to write 2 different books, Deliver Violinist Soul to Hell book and Cute Alien Romance book, but mushed them together instead. I wanted to like this book, but I am bitter and I hate fun. Super funny and cute. DNF. Unfortunately, I have too much religious trauma to be reading something like this. And this was a very special edition of convincing you to read books based on their 1-star reviews, because these are also all books that you can read for the Trans Rights Readathon. I hope you pick at least one of them up, because these are some great books. It would have been 5 stars if there was no incest. It's giving Tumblr. Derogatory. If I had read this was a book about a woman fighting demons with a magic sword, who used the birth of a nation as a way to gather souls, and a gory, fantasized retelling of how the KKK worked in the Roaring 20s, I never would have picked this up. Ever. This book started off with an illicit child sacrifice, and I just couldn't get beyond that. The Odyssey, for her. Do not believe the hype. This is not a book about a realistic war. This is a book about children who use magical abilities to defeat entire armies in completely silly ways. Awful. I couldn't wait for them all to be eaten. Unsure how this novel gets rave reviews. It is just full of evil people with no light anywhere. Death and destruction pervades almost every page. It was awful. I could not get past the first page. I would give it negative stars if I could. But it was a cool cover. Domestic drama trash. I'm embarrassed to say I read the whole thing. Thanks for another excellent round of convincing you to read books I enjoyed based on their 1-star Goodreads reviews. Hunger Games, but make them rich, and The Bachelor's most dramatic season. I knew there was going to be magic, but fuck, was there a lot of it. Here I think I'm going to read a memoir about a young woman's challenges with mental illness, something I can relate to. And instead I find myself struggling to understand what the heck she's talking about. All I know is it's convoluted words involving ancient Japanese stories and myths. Sorry, can't get into it. DNF after 2 weird stories. The most unbelievable thing about this book is not the vampires, but how a crush the characters had at age 13 still mattered 10 years later. FYI, the term autism was coined in 1908, so much for a historical setting. The term autism is never used in this book. Absolutely not! DNF, I had to stop at 59% when the very explicit cannibalism while the victim was still alive began. Just no. DNF, trying too hard with gender issues. I found this book absolutely crazy, in a bad way. I do not agree with the author's point of view. I think it's great that this family was so successful in business and helped medicine with the creation of OxyContin. Thanks again to the Goodreads 1-star reviewers for giving me that good content. And I recommend all of these books, of course. They're listed in the caption. Wasn't worth the childhood damage. For anyone looking for a more realistic plot, there is Greek mythology. Disorganized fantasy novella. Certainly not life-changing or anything. The plot was hard to follow and the editing was terrible. Could have been better, NGL. Toxic fandom. Very confused by the plot. We're supposed to hate Satan, but God does all the killing? Overhyped. Badly edited, poor continuity and internal consistency. Authors seem to change between books. Poorly researched. Not enough Lucifer. He's easily the most interesting character. Unlikable and inconsistent main character. Usually these videos are to pitch you books I love and to giggle a little, but these reviews really made me laugh, so I wanted to share them with you. And if you're wondering, this book is actually a collection of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, and I think it was my great-grandmother's edition. Anyway, I hope you had fun, don't take it too seriously, and I kind of want to make a part 2 because there are so many good reviews out there.